Does non-binary fit in the trans spectrum? Depending on who you ask, you might get different answers. This episode is all about the vast non-binary spectrum and how it coincides with the term trans, as well as other experiences on how one can traverse our world as people who don't conform to the gender norms of society. Come and listen to our guest speakers Venus Aves and Khrys in this special and last episode of Trans Speaks. I'm your host Yas, and this is my co-host Zoe.
Hello.
And today we have our special guest for today. Zoe, can you tell us about them?
So joining us today is Mix Venus from UP Babaylan. So Mix Venus, may you introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Hello everyone, I'm Venus from UP Babaylan. I'm so happy to be here with Zoe and Yas for Trans Speak. So I am the Puno Babaylan or President of UP Babaylan, the LGBTQI org of UP Diliman.
Yay! So,
Yeah.
MX Venus, how do you identify first before we start talking about it?
Thank you for asking. Thank you so much for asking. So I'm identified as genderqueer, but I also use the terms non-binary and trans to describe myself. So, yeah.
Right. I understand because it's difficult. People usually just assume. So it's nice for you to tell us that. Um so what does being trans mean to you as someone who identifies as genderqueer, non-binary, trans?
Yeah, so trans or transgender is actually an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and sex assigned at birth are different. So let's those are two concepts. So first of all, sex assigned at birth is something, of course, obviously given to us at birth on the basis of our genitalia. So, diba, when
Mm-hmm.
we come into this world, most of us, I'm not saying all, most of us have either a penis or a vagina. Then, based on that one little thing, based on whether we have a penis or a vagina, the doctors decide that we're either a boy or a girl, and our life is set before us now. So
Yeah.
if you are a girl or if you have a vagina, if you're assigned female at birth, then you are expected to like pink. You're expected to be feminine. You're expected to identify basically as a girl or as a woman. Trans people are people who are also assigned a gender at birth, but their
Mm-hmm.
gender identity or their internal sense of gender, who they really are, is different from what was assigned to them at birth. So the transgender umbrella includes trans women, trans men, and of course, non-binary people like me who are not exclusively men or women.
Women. Yes. Okay. I actually have a question about that. Some non-binary people actually don't refer to themselves as
Mm-mm.
trans. Um, why is that? If you could tell us a little bit of why people don't really, non-binary people don't really identify themselves with the term trans.
Yes, I think it's very important to approach these terms, these labels, not as um, scientific or objective labels that you could just assign to anyone. These labels are at the end of the day self-identification labels. So at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, what's very important to remember generally is that it's still up to the person to identify with whatever label they feel is best for them. So as for the case of non-binary people not identifying as trans, I know there are various reasons why people don't do that. So first of all, trans is a loaded term. um, when people say trans, of course, yung pinaka-immediate assumption is trans woman or trans man.
Yes,
Some
yes.
non-binary people feel na for visibility, for representation for the non-binary community, it's important to highlight that they're non-binary.
Right.
Another reason I've also found this online is that some non-binary people feel excluded from the larger transgender community. It's
Mm.
maybe because some trans people are ignorant or they're outright exclusionary towards non-binary people. But for that reason, some non-binary people don't want to associate with the trans community or don't want to use the term trans to describe themselves. And I think the third and most common reason why some non-binary people don't identify as trans or don't use trans to describe themselves is that they just don't identify as trans. They just don't
Mm-hmm.
think that the word really does a good job of describing themselves as people, describing their gender as non-binary people. So yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. I think a lot of people think that they have to subscribe to a certain label for themselves. However, we all have our different ways of expressing ourselves or different ways to identify, So, thank you for that. Um a more personal question this time. What part does being trans or being non-binary play in your identity as a person?
Yeah. Um in an ideal world, diba, gender ideally shouldn't be such a big deal. But in this
Yes,
world
yes.
that marginalized genders from cis women, trans women, especially non-binary people, in this world where marginalized people are marginalized genders, sorry, are continually oppressed, discriminated against, invisibilized. So it's very important, diba, to claim your identity and to proudly and publicly declare yourself as non-binary if you can and if you want to, because at the end of the day, it's not needed. But as for me, being non-binary and being trans is important to my identity because before literally before I learned the terms non-binary, the term trans, it's like I didn't know who I was.
I
To be
could
honest,
understand
it
that.
was yeah. When I learned about genderqueer, about non-binary, about these words, I treated them not just as words and labels, but I treated them as something important in my life because a part of me, is represented, expressed through those words.
Yeah, having that term that really defines what you believe in or what you identify with is so powerful, no? Knowing that, oh, this was a thing. Oh, I really identify with that. I can't believe that I'm valid by having that term describe me as a person.
And it eases up the confusions prior to learning those terms. And I believe that a lot of people would feel the same way. And I'm glad that you found these terms and being able to reclaim them for yourself and for your identity.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It was thanks to actually to UP Babaylan, my safe
Mm-hmm.
space and support group in the university that I first learned these words. So I think yeah, I would throw in another idea here that LGBTQI support groups are really really important. So I really admire what orgs like Bagsari UP Manila are doing for queer youth in UP Manila. Yeah.
Of course, we just hope we're doing it justice. Yeah. But Zoe, do you have any other questions?
Um, yeah, I was gonna ask earlier when
Mm-hmm.
like we'll go back to like the whole with the trans and non-binary part. Like, is it? I mean, it would be valid if a non-binary person would identify themselves as trans, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's totally okay. Because like I personally, when I told someone like I think I might lean towards being trans, and that person was like, "I thought you're non-binary. If you say you're trans, it's like you're admitting you're a man." And I was like, "What?" And I
What?
got so confused. So I that was one of the questions that I had before. So thank you that for you know for answering that and clearing up
Yeah,
the confusion.
clarifying it. Yeah,
Yeah.
clarifying it. Yeah.
So okay, so
So,
for now that we got that out of the way.
yeah. Now that we got that out of the way, you mentioned that UP Babaylan was like a big part of you realizing your gender identity. How did you actually come to find out that you were genderqueer or non-binary?
Yeah, so ever since I was a child, I've always known that I did not identify as a boy or a girl. I don't have that usual or eureka moment where I learned, aha, I'm trans, I'm not a boy, not a girl. But I think it was really a journey back when I
Mm-hmm.
was a child. I have some memories of me feeling excluded or feeling weird just because I did not like what other boys like. I did not want to do what they wanted to do. Um, then, of course, when I hit puberty, those contradictions even became more pronounced, especially in high
Mm-hmm.
school, diba? Where people start to date, where people start to be more expressive of who they are. Um, as someone who comes from a Catholic high school, so it was really hard for me to really fully express myself. I mean, there were also
Yeah,
um
Catholic schools.
like trans feminine students or I don't know how they identify as, but um uh people would identify as bakla or as gay. But the
Mm-hmm.
point is they were people were assigned as male at birth but expressed themselves in a feminine or androgynous way. So there were people like that, but they were always in the sidelines or um, they were not really allowed to be who they were. For example, the uniform policy, the haircut policy were still
Yeah.
very strictly enforced, especially in basic education institutions. So, but back then I always knew na I was different. I just didn't have the right words or have you
Uh,
know those the choice to really have a label to describe myself. So that was until I entered UP and I joined Babaylan. So I remember the first time I met Babaylan members, it was during the applicants orientation. Then before they started, they asked us about our name, our course, and our soji. Now, I did not know what soji was. I
mm-hmm.
only
At the
knew
time.
that I was bakla or I was attracted to men, sometimes to women. I did not know
Mm-hmm.
that there were people who were neither men or women
Or women.
exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really because of Babaylan. It's really because, for example, of the educational discussions, because of the exposure to the advocacy, and more importantly, because I actually met people who are also non-binary, people who are also trans and genderqueer. It was because of that I came to terms with my own identity. Yeah. But I wouldn't
That's
say
amazing.
that my identity just became real and valid when I chose a label to
Mm-hmm.
identify as. I mean that's not true either. My identity back when I was in high school, back when I was a child, when I didn't have the words to explain it, describe it, was just as valid as my identity now. It's just that I feel more represented. I feel more validated. I feel more me now that I have
Yeah.
a word to describe who I am.
Well, that's really nice. I could really relate to a lot of the things you were saying. As a child, I also did not subscribe to the gender norms that people kept enforcing
Yeah.
on me. Yeah, I preferred to be like in the middle, but I didn't know what the middle
What
was.
the
I didn't
third
know that,
option?
yeah, that there was
Yeah.
a third option at all. So that's really great that you managed to figure that out at such a young
Mm.
age, because I think a lot of people only manage to be able to explore themselves when they're further on in life, and it's harder that way because there's more societal expectations, diba?
And I'm glad
Yes,
you were able to find it in a safe space, and you
Mm-hmm.
had the courage to embrace yourself and the labels more.
yeah.
Or
I wish like all queer people have that, but unfortunately,
yes,
Mm,
um, the three of us know that's not the case.
that's
yes.
true. It's a
But that's
sad
why we're
fact.
here. We try to bring it closer to these people na who have yet to find that courage to be themselves
Yes. Mm-mm.
and to have that
Yes.
space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's difficult, no, when on one hand we're also trying to build the safe space for other people, but on the other hand, doing that requires work. Doing that requires requires us to exert energy, to exert effort, and sometimes it's just so tiring to do
Nah,
this.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true. But
That's true, but it'll be worth it naman in the end if we could
yeah,
just, get at least one person to feel a bit more comfortable here in this world.
true.
So, in your process of finding yourself out, of like discovering all these new things, of course, we all know that we do have challenges that come along the way. Do you, could you share some of those challenges that you've dealt with while coming to terms with your identity?
Yes, there's this very harmful notion in the community that non-binary people are people who are just not yet ready to identify as trans women or as trans men.
Like we're just
Some
confused.
yeah, like we're just confused, like we're not confident, or we don't pass enough. We're not that pretty or handsome enough to
ouch.
identify as trans women or
Pain.
as trans men, as if diba, non-binary is a phase, and
Mm,
eventually we have to choose to either be the gender we're assigned at birth or the either one of the binary genders, diba?
right.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest challenges biggest challenge for me, that constant doubt on my part as a result of people imposing that idea on me. I would question myself and my identity, whether I was really a woman or whether I was just acting out, whether I was really non-binary, or if non-binary people are really valid, etc., etc., diba? As non-binary people, we are also not immune from having wrong conceptions, harmful feelings about ourselves, diba? I don't know
True.
how we call those words, but for example, for trans people in general, it's called internalized transphobia. Uh, for non-binary people, I don't know what's the
Thoughts?
term for that,
Non-binary phobia. Just kidding.
'di ba? So
Hmm.
'yun. Mm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could really like relate to that on such a like individual level. Like I felt a lot of the things you were saying because I always doubt myself. Like, oh, is it really okay for me to just be like this, like a blob of something that doesn't want to conform to anything?
Yeah, and you're made to feel that you're a burden to other people. But you're
Oh,
made to
that's true.
feel that
Yeah.
asking other people to use your chosen name, to use your pronouns, the correct pronouns, to use your honorific, you're made to feel that, diba, that's a burden to them, that's unnatural, that's wrong, downright wrong. And yeah, so I think that those two challenges are really the biggest challenges that I continue to face.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of self-doubt, no,
And
talaga.
pressures. And we
Mm-hmm.
get it both from like the cisgendered and even from our own the own queer community. And
Yeah.
that sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. So even our community, or which we expect to be a safe space, is not really fully safe for people like
Mm.
us.
So
Yeah, and
yeah, go
no,
go.
it's okay. Go on.
No, I was just gonna ask like, so how did people take it? Did you ever come out as like exclusively like, hi, I'm genderqueer, or was it always just something that people knew around you, something like that?
Yeah. So I first came out as before as bisexual when I was
Mm.
in senior high. After that, when I went to UP, when I realized that I was genderqueer and pansexual and all that, I did not really have another like single coming out story that I told my parents or my family, my friends. It just sort of happened. Like they saw my, transformation online. I was very active in UP Babaylan. I remember the first time I really said I was genderqueer was in 2019 during my first transgender day of visibility. So it was March 31, 2020, that I came out to everyone as genderqueer. I don't know if they read the full post or if they understood what I was trying to say, but that was already a win for me, having to declare yourself to the public. After that, I tried to sort of like educate the people around me, especially, for example, my friends here in the province, here in my family and my relatives, who unfortunately do not have the same exposure and awareness that I have about SOGS. So it's a constant effort to educate and re-educate people about who you are. And sometimes I would still get funny comments from friends that I sometimes I don't mind them, but sometimes I even laugh with them. But sometimes, of course, it also contributes to our self doubt, that lingering voice inside us that tells us that we're not valid and all
We're
that.
not valid.
So yeah, that's that. It was not like a single big moment. Unfortunately, I did not have that. But it still is a journey. Some people in my life still do not know this about me, but I'm still trying to decide if I want to tell them and if I'm ready to do that in the future.
Well, in your own time, it's always up to you whether or not you should disclose that information because you don't really owe it to anyone, right? But
Truly.
it's good that I think you didn't really mention that a lot of people weren't as receptive, but I imagine it's still difficult even if they are. Because it's such a hard way of adjusting from calling someone like he or she to they or them. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-mm. And having a Babaylan name, actually Venus is my Babaylan name. It's all members of Babaylan are given a name like after we get inducted to the organization. So it having that name was also helpful because diba, it signaled like a very different change in my life. I started to call myself Venus when dealing with advocacy related engagements. Also, some classes, in some classes, I also introduce myself as Venus, depending on whether I feel safe or not in that class. But right now, JP is not really my dead name.
Mm.
It's just something I use for people who really don't yet know that much about me. Like my
Ah,
family,
yes.
my friends here. Sort of like a dead name actually, now that I think of it. But yeah, I suppose I still use it like to not really, fully shock people.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
giving them something of the old me that they could still refer to.
Venus is such a really beautiful name. I just wanted to say, the
Yeah.
first time
Name
I
of a
heard
Yeah,
that,
goddess.
wow,
Name of
that's
a
so
goddess.
cool, an actual goddess.
yeah,
uh,
that was my
yeah.
first thought. And Venus is also one of my favorite songs by Lady Gaga. So I was really happy when
Yes.
when they gave that name to me. But actually, it's actually the name of a dog, the dog of one of our alumni members. So after I knew that, parang the happiness sort of decreased, but I still thought na everyone won't know about this. I won't let
Yeah,
everyone know
yeah, yeah.
about this. So,
Well,
diba?
after hearing this, they might find out.
Yeah. So you and your listeners now know the
Now, know
secret
where it
behind
came from. No, no, but it's
Venus.
still cool to have a name like Venus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you actually deal with all of those, problems that you have? You mentioned the self-doubt, the
Mm.
people not really understanding who you are and people seeing it as just like a phase to go through. How do you deal with all of these?
Yeah. When I was a child, in my youth, well, I'm still a young person, but when I was a kid,
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I always just used to ignore, those kinds of things. I actually did a study about it in senior high, and
Wow.
it came out that ignoring is the most common coping strategy for LGBTQI youth when they're faced with,
Mm.
prejudice and harassment. So up until now, that's still what I do. But what's different now is that I have a very very affirming support group in UP Babaylan. So I have people like me who understand me and who respect me and validate me for who I am. So that, I think, sort of made all the difference. um, I admit that ignoring the problem is not really healthy for me.
Mm.
But now that I've found, a support group, of family in the university, um, all of that really, really changed. So again, I would stress the fact that, LGBTQI support groups, safe spaces that are LGBTQI inclusive and affirming are very, very important for queer youth. So I really hope na more orgs, di ba, like Babaylan and Bagsari would emerge in the future, because I know that a lot of young people need a safe space.
That's true. And I'm happy you have your safe space. And I hope that for the people listening, you'll be able to find a safe space, even if it's just one person. We all start somewhere.
Yes.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
Since nagbabuffer si Zoe. Joke
I'm
lang.
so sorry.
Uh, as someone who is also genderqueer, I've done a lot of things, you know, to my outward appearance to make me feel more comfortable, or and to like be able to project myself onto the world the way I want to be seen. I want to ask you, for our listeners out there, what are some of the things that you could suggest to like, you know, make yourself feel more comfortable, like projecting who you are outwardly?
Yeah. The first thing I would tell, for example, a young genderqueer person like me is, as cliche as it sounds, is to follow your voice. I think that's really important, diba? As genderqueer people, as queer people in general, there are always expectations. There are always norms that are imposed on us on how we should act, how we should behave, how we should dress, how we should look. But at the end of the day, diba, most of the time, those expectations, those impositions don't really align with what we are or who we are, what we want to do with our lives. So don't listen to the multitude of voices that impose things on you. Listen to your own voice. What do you want? What do you want to wear? How do you want to look like? Diba? What's really great then about non-binary is it has more leeway for expression. Suppose, for example, for trans women and trans men, but trans women and trans men are not required to be feminine and masculine respectively, diba? We all know that gender identity and gender expression are different, but society still says that in order for them to respect trans women, for example, trans women need to undergo medical transitioning. Trans women need to be
Right.
as feminine, as passing, as cis looking as possible in order to be seen as women. For non-binary people, some people actually don't know about us. So parang it gives
Right.
us time to to really explore and experiment with our identities and our expressions. And second, while other people expect non-binary people to be androgynous, which is
Mm,
again not a requirement because gender identity and gender expression
yes.
are different. Androgyny in itself is also has a lot of room for creativity, for leeway. Um, so I would say to a non-binary person, be creative. Explore yourself,
Yes.
experiment. At the end of the day, gender is a journey. It's not something that you just uh, end up diba? For especially for trans people, gender is a journey of affirming and reaffirming yourself. Every day we wake up,
Yes.
we affirm and reaffirm ourselves. So yeah.
Yeah. Indeed, such good words. Thank you so much. Honestly, I myself, despite being genderqueer, I have a lot of like I don't know how to put it, like societal expectations or um ito na lang, parang if I dress masculine, right? Because I'm feeling like dressing
Yeah.
masculine that day.
Mm-mm.
Some people take it in a good way, and then some other people take it badly, mostly my family, of course. But I do feel like this heavy weight of expectation on how I'm supposed to act or dress or even like just present myself depending on the people I'm around with. Do you ever feel that way with the people around you? Like, are there people where are there people who expect you to be more feminine, and then are there people who expect you to be more androgynous?
Yeah, I really do experience that too, especially for me as a person who was assigned male at birth and who identifies as non-binary. People expect me to always be as feminine as I can, especially
Mm,
because technically I could be uh, described as trans feminine. Trans feminine is a word for that includes both trans women and actually non-binary people who were assigned male at birth but present themselves in a feminine manner.
feminine manner. Mhm.
So yeah, that there's always an expectation that I need to be feminine, that I need to look and sound like a woman, for example. So it's really hard because um first of all I don't want that. I
Of course.
that's a main factor. I sometimes I want to look feminine or to sound feminine, and sometimes I don't. And but at the end of the day, I just want to to be me. I don't want to be confined to a specific expectation on how to look.
Yeah, that's so accurate. Like, we don't want to be told what to do or what to act like, right?
Or be
I don't
boxed.
think, yeah, or be boxed. And I think cisgendered people don't like that either. So it raises a point na if you don't want it done to you, then don't do it to other people.
The golden rule.
Yes, the golden rule. An additional question is, as a non-binary person, as a genderqueer person, how has identifying that way or realizing your identity affect your relationships? Like, is it more difficult to make friendships or to find partners if ever you're dating? Like, has it affected that aspect of
Mhm.
your life in any way?
Yeah. I would like to start with dating. Wow.
Okay, sige, let's
Especially
Okay,
start with
online
sige.
dating.
dating. Oh
Like,
my god, online dating.
okay. 'Di ba? When you go to Tinder and Bumble, 'di ba, you have to put your gender and oftentimes you have to put your gender on your bio, especially if you're trans or non-binary. Because there are people, 'di ba, who assume that you're a cis person. Or for me, there are some people,
Mhm.
especially like foreigners, who assume that I'm a cis woman. Then when I tell them that I'm not, that I'm trans and non-binary, they freak out and they block me or they
Oh,
um
they ghost you.
yeah, or they go to the option of hate speech. There's unfortunately
Oh,
I've experienced that. um Sometimes I just say that I'm a trans woman because to be honest, nakakapagod na rin minsan explain ang non-binary and genderqueer. I know as an advocate I shouldn't feel this way, but but
yeah, but
especially
as a person,
yeah,
nakakapagod
like
rin.
in very personal contexts like in dating, diba?
Mhm.
It's sometimes very very tiring not to explain. So sometimes I just say that I'm trans, or when they ask me if I'm a trans woman, I say I'm a trans woman. So it's really difficult for non-binary people to date because on one hand, um, there is an expectation for you to, again, to look a certain way or to act a certain way. And on the other hand, a lot of people still don't know about what non-binary is. A lot of people are still transphobic, and some of us are forced to hide that fact about ourselves. That For example, for me, diba, I hide that fact by saying I'm a trans woman when I'm not. I don't identify as a woman. So it's really hard to stay both true to yourself and um, to meet a lot of people in dating who affirm you who you are. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, because I've used Bumble before as well. And it's so much easier to just put female
Yeah.
instead of like non binary because they're like, wait, so what are you? And I'm like, I'm me.
Yeah. And even if Bumble asks you about your gender, diba? After you enter your gender, they would ask you if you're looking for women or for men. There's not an option where you're
Mhm.
looking for non-binary people. So I don't know where they put
That's
us.
true.
I
So we
don't know.
need a dating app for
Yeah,
non-binary.
or I think
Yeah, that's
I
a true.
got it the other way around. I think they ask you if you want to be seen by people who are looking for men or
Men
for
or
women.
women.
Parang
Yeah.
ganon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, yeah, that's true. I saw that option as well in my Bumble before. And then I was like, wait, why are there people who are swiping right that are like men? When I said I didn't want to be shown to men. Maybe
Yeah.
because they categorize us somewhere. I don't know if they categorize us as both or neither. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but now
Mm-mm.
that we touched on like dating, I have a question. It's like even if you say nah, you're not, you identify as non-binary to someone you meet, uh, do you get what do you call this? You get expected to behave like a certain way. Like even if sabi mong non-binary and trans ka, i-expect ka na, oh, you have to be more feminine, you have to act like a woman, even if you're not, or even like or yeah, even if you say na you're a man, you're not a man, but they expect you to act like a man. Do you have those
Mm-mm.
kind of
Um,
interaction?
yeah, especially for people who unfortunately do not have, again, the same level of SOGS education and awareness that we have, or who have an idea but have the wrong idea. It's very difficult because sometimes when I tell them that I'm non-binary and trans, they would did you hear that? Sorry,
No,
my
that's
sound.
okay.
They would fixate or focus on trans and assume that I'm a trans woman. And
Mm.
they would ask me whether I have changed, what's between my legs. Be- yeah,
Right. They love
that's
asking that question.
yeah, I think they get off on imagining, di ba, what we have in our legs and it's none of their business. So they would fixate on the trans part and assume that I'm, a trans woman. And 'di ba, as I said before, identifying as a trans woman and as a trans man has, a lot of baggage because unfortunately they're expected to conform to cisgender men and cisgender women values and norms, roles. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing that they experience from people who don't have that much of an idea about SOGS. But I also meet people who think they're liberal or progressive enough and who think they know about SOGS, but still fail to realize diba, that non-binary people don't need to look a certain way, don't need to act a certain way. Um,
Mm,
they would still expect that
yeah.
I should be always, androgynous and look neither masculine or feminine. So I think that's really the main expectation, the main challenge I face when I'm meeting new friends.
Like sometimes hindi mo alam kung saan ka lulugar with all these
Yeah.
people.
True. True.
Pero
And
kailangan mo
some
ikaw pa rin mag-adjust.
Oo
Oo
nga.
nga eh.
Ba't hindi na
Like
lang sila mag-adjust?
true. And sometimes like ano na lang, you don't talk about it. you ask them not to talk about it. So you move on to other things.
Right, right. So that they won't fixate on it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that experience as well. Like, am I supposed to act a certain way just
Mm-mm.
because they expect me to be a certain way, right?
Yeah. And there's also the idea that, for example, when you dress one day as very feminine, they would assume agad na you're identifying as a woman already. When you dress masculine, they would think that you're a man again, and that you're less non-binary or less trans. So while, 'di ba, while for some people that could be the case because there are gender fluid people who change, for example, their expression or their presentation based on how they identify. But generally, it shouldn't necessarily be that way because, again, as we know, gender identity and gender expression are completely
Different
different.
things. Yeah, yeah, they are.
Non-binary people don't need to be androgynous. Trans women don't need to be feminine. Trans men don't need to be masculine. The same goes for cisgender people.
Yeah, but it's that might that still takes time, and especially here in the
Right.
Philippines, you know, we're a very gendered society.
That's very true.
I want to ask, Mix Venus, if you had if you were able to travel abroad, or like either vacation or through student exchange, or some other way, uh, what how was it? How was your experience there?
Mm-mm. I actually had the chance to go to Singapore and Malaysia when I was in senior high, like for a student leadership program exchange thing. I mostly interacted with my fellow students from the same school, so I don't really have really a good idea about how Singaporeans and Malaysians view LGBTQI people. And back then, I also didn't identify pa as genderqueer. I mean, siguro, as I said, diba, I knew I was not a cisgender man, but I did not yet identify or declare that I was non-binary or trans. So yeah. Um, I notice now that the knowing about, for example, how LGBTQI people are treated in Singapore and Malaysia, um, they also have really a hard time there, like especially in Malaysia, where some LGBTQI people also experience violence. So I sort of think now that I was lucky, that I did not experience violence,
Oh,
harassment
that's really good.
in those countries. Yeah. What about
As
you?
a
I
yeah,
mean, I also
yeah.
back to you.
I
Honestly,
You
a
a good answer.
gamer,
Mm.
as a
Yeah.
gamer, there's I don't know, there's a lot of servers where you could be put into like with like people from different countries, and then you play together and stuff like that. So I've had like this experience when like I was just playing, I was minding my business, then I started to use my microphone, and coincidentally that day medyo deep yung voice ko. So they were like, "Oh, are you a woman or are you a man?" And I'm like, um we're playing a game. Why is that important? And then
yeah.
they proceeded to harass me the whole time I was playing.
Mm.
Oh, you play like that because you're a girl. And I'm like, who knows? Maybe I'm a guy. And like
I'm so
the
sorry
whole
that
time it
happened.
was so uncomfortable. No, it's okay. I at this point I'm kind of used to it. Male,
Mm.
well, predominantly cisgendered male gamers are kind of really mean online and very
Toxic,
aggressive.
you mean? Don't
Yeah,
sugarcoat
okay,
it.
fine. That word toxic. Okay, they are
It's
very
just their
toxic.
insecurities talking, siguro. I don't know about that.
Yeah. What I do in that kind of situation is I try to be the best person at the game, and then I show them, haha, you got beaten. But gaming aside, I've been to Japan before. since I'm half. And I think they have this thing where they try their best to mind their own business about things.
Mm-mm.
Like, although in Japanese person standards, I pass as half. They know that I'm half for some reason, but sometimes they don't. And there was this one time when I was on vacation at my grandmother's house back in Japan. Tapos, someone saw me walking down the street and I had like colored hair, I had piercings, I was dressed really weirdly, and that's not something they're used to because it was the countryside. And they were like, what are you doing? In Japanese, what are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be at work or at school? Why are you just walking around here? And I was like, gaijin des. And that in Japanese, that means I'm a foreigner. And then they were like, okay, okay. So I think they're more lenient towards like foreign people expressing themselves differently from the norm. But if like you're you're of like you're Japanese, there's a lot of strict rules you have to follow, unspoken rules, but there are a lot of expectations based on my experience. Yeah.
It's parang double standard kasi may madaming ganun na I'm okay with you expressing how you feel, how you identify as, but not when it comes to someone close to me or someone
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
like from the same area. And imagine mo if you're in that, if you live in the same neighborhood and they have that kind of mindset, it becomes hard to embrace.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a lot of us go stealth.
Yeah,
yeah, because I
stealth.
would think that, I wouldn't have to deal with you tomorrow. I don't have to associate myself with you. So it's different if it's, my child or my sister or my cousin who's like that, diba?
That's such a good
Mhm.
point. Thinking about it that way. Oh, I'll only see them this one time and then never again. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
Or is it different? Like, for example, you mentioned that it was in the countryside, but in big cities, like for example, like Tokyo, where
Oh, nobody bats an eye at me there. It's like, oh, another weirdo. That's fine. Like in Tokyo, Shibuya, yeah, like going around those places, it's like, oh, I
y-
can just,
you're
it's
probably not
fashion.
that weird in
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Tokyo.
not that weird. It's fashion.
I just want to
Yeah.
say when I went to Kyoto, we got an option. Because I went on an exchange program in Japan before, and so my host fam or my tried to bring me to Kyoto to show me and they gave me the option to try on like the kimono, and I wanted to say, can I try on the one for the male? I don't know if
Hakama.
it's like the language barrier at first, like,
And
but
yeah.
it didn't translate well. And I realized so I just ended up wearing the kimono. I just didn't have my hair done. So yeah, I mean clothes wise I look great, but with the hair it didn't look good. And I walked around Kyoto in that. And when actually I was looking then at their parang, di ba you rent like a kimono, and I look
Mhm.
at the men's size and I saw na they don't have one for my size. So even if I did try to uh rent one, size wise it would be hard. So may ganun,
Yeah.
parang, yeah,
Maybe
clothing
because
wise.
it's catered to like foreigners, and usually, foreign white men are pretty big. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
just hard then. And then I also jokingly asked, hey, can I introduce myself? Because in when you introduce yourself or in some languages, it's very gendered the
Gendered,
language.
yeah.
So, di ba kung Tagalog lang tayo, ako si Zoe, and blah, blah, blah. Madali na siyang intindihan. But when it comes to, let's say, in Japanese, di ba, you have to use like either watashi or boku. And I wanted to introduce myself with the male one. But then, when I tried asking that, parang ayaw nila. Or they pretended to not hear my question.
Wait,
So parang,
Well,
is watashi ba yan? Or for feminine? Or for, like, for women?
okay. So watashi is like basically the most formal way of introducing yourself, but men have like they could either introduce themselves as boku, which is like a less formal way but still pretty formal, and then there's the really informal one which is like ore. And yeah, that's why when you go to anime, you hear like "ore no namae wa," like that. Like the guys say it like that. Yeah, it's because it's informal, but you can usually use watashi for both men and women, and it would be fine.
Kasi like, watashi or, atashi, I mean, it's also gay lingo for ako in the
I
Philippines, or at least
yeah.
in UP Babaylan. Or
Oh,
hindi
that's such a
naman.
good ano. That's such
Yeah.
a oh, I didn't know that. It's
Yeah,
pretty
but because
cool.
our alumni told us that some, I think one or like some of them went to Japan, and then when they came back to the Philippines, they introduced some words to people. So like, for example, watashi, it's ako. Is otoko like lalaki in Japanese?
Yeah, otoko.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
also use otoko for lalaki. Anyway, that's just some trivia for you for gaming go
No,
trivia.
that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's well, that's Japan. I haven't been to other countries, so I wouldn't know. Pero I hear in some, like when I talk to people, like I've made friends like this pandemic to people in other countries, and I ask them like, oh, how do you introduce yourself? Tapos they'll go about like, oh, I just say this and that, and we compare language. Parang nagko-cultural exchange kami.
Mm-mm.
Mm,
So for some languages, madaling they have like more gender neutral terms, which is nice. And there's also still other languages that are very gendered, and
Yeah.
it limits it for a lot of them. Then
Mm-mm.
right. Actually, like linking that topic to what we were talking about before, it's like I don't see a lot of like out non-binary people or genderqueer
I
people
know, right?
anywhere, like anywhere
Yeah, in media.
in media or something like that. And it all, I mean, mutuals, you can find people because like, you know, they know that
Like we're
you're
an
like this.
LGBT org, so we're
Yeah, yeah.
expected to know.
Yeah, exactly. But aside of like that, I don't really find a lot of people from other countries or our country that are genderqueer. And thinking about it, it's really hard to find representation or like to like see if they're really well accepted in other countries or other communities, right?
Yeah, because it's hard. It's very hard then for us to come out. Um, 'Di ba? People would say na non-binary people don't face discrimination as much as trans people. I mean, trans men and trans women, for example, but that's not true. We also face our own kind of discrimination. Like we're invisibilized. We're not seen like for who we are. And I guess there are also many non-binary and genderqueer people out there who just don't feel safe to come out, or who are not yet ready to come out, or who do not know that they're actually non-binary or genderqueer because they don't have the resources to know more about themselves.
That's true. Actually, personally for me, recently ko lang na-embrace yung term na non-binary. Talagang before I was like really confused. It's like, I don't know what I am. Like, I'm just me. But somehow that saying that I'm me isn't enough to express or come to terms with my identity. And it was only with meeting fellow non-binary. I was like, oh, that's an option. That's actually amazing. And yeah, and it's good na when you really embrace like being genderqueer, non-binary, and trans, and you show that to people, you give them a glimpse of a future that hey, I can be like that, and I can identify as that, and that's great. Pero
Yeah,
yun,
one way to think about it then is to believe that the non-binary revolution is just starting. In the past century, diba,
Yes.
lesbian and gay people were at the forefront of the movement. They
yes,
were, it was, I think I would imagine that it was also like this. People didn't know lesbian and gay people except for those they know in the media, diba? But when people started to organize, people started to get more visible, to proudly declare their truth, and everything else followed. Right now, I'm not saying that there are no closeted gay and lesbian people, but there are far less. I think I would say there are far more closeted non-binary people, genderqueer people, trans people who you know who don't have the strength to come out yet, or who don't feel that they have to come out.
That's true.
Because it's scary, like usually we know how people would react if like you came out as gay or if you came out as trans. There, that there are certain reactions that you could garner, but when you come out as like genderqueer or non-binary, it's like, oh my god, I don't know how anyone's gonna react. Are they gonna like ignore it, or are they gonna like get mad, or are they gonna accept me? It's so scary talaga. So yeah, what you were saying about like it's the non-binary revolution. Yeah, I think this was kind of how it felt like being back in the 50s,
Mm,
hiding around from everyone. Yeah.
yeah. Mm. It's good to think of it that way because you would sort of understand where we're at this moment, where we are at this moment, where people are starting to identify as non-binary, as genderqueer. Because if you notice, diba, in the past years, in recent years, more and more people are coming out as non-binary. More and more
That's
people are
true.
starting to recognize that the gender binary is a sham, it's a scam,
Yeah. It's
and
just
that
scam
a
indeed.
gender is much more complicated than that. So it's good that we're at this point in history where we're starting to realize that, and that for us, for advocates, that we can do something, you know, to push forward our agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
re-
And I
it's really
think in our
nice.
own way, uh, if we come to a point that we have embraced it fully, and I guess it would be safe to say that we're sort of out. And for people listening, I mean, they
I
probably know that
mean,
already.
what other way to come out
Another way
than
to
through a
come out,
podcast?
the podcast, and tell everyone,
Do a
hey, you're
podcast.
non-binary, which you should know it exists. Yeah, genderqueer too. Yeah, and I think if now that you said that there would be like the non-binary genderqueer revolution, I think that's going to start with our generation. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Mm.
great why we're doing this, because it brings awareness, no? Not that we're
true.
here and we're queer.
Now that we're here in our career, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we actually like answered most of the question. Oh, wait, no, actually, um, how do you go about like professionally, like using MX or mix, like how
Mm.
do people take that when you're
Great
trying
question.
to like tell them about that?
Or when you try to apply there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's really good to know, first of all, that mix and the use of they them as singular pronouns, that's not new. I mean, people have been using mix as a gender neutral pronoun since as a gender neutral honorific. So what I was saying was Nalimutan ko na. Ano yung question? Okay. Mix and they and them.
Yes.
So, I'll start. So, I use mix as my honorific, and I also use they, them as my pronouns. So, I've been starting to use them since 2019 when I came out as genderqueer. So, luckily, for example, in UP, it's not really something out of the blue because many other people, I mean, there are people who also use mix, who also use they, them pronouns. But there are still some, for example, some professors, some instructors, and some classmates who are either ignorant about it, who are hostile to people like me.
Hostile.
Yeah. First of all, I could excuse, for example, ignorance. Like there are teachers who are willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
When they ask us, for example, to introduce ourselves, I always make it a point to let them know about my pronouns and my honorific so that I get to be addressed correctly. Some teachers would admit not knowing about it, and they would ask to be educated. There are also some. This is not my experience, but I know someone who's also from Babaylan who was I have no better word for it, but who was harassed by a professor just because they were using they them pronouns, and they were also asking the professor to use their chosen name and not their their legal or their dead name. So the professor, the instructor called them really mean things, even after they pointed out that at least four reputable institutions like the APA, the MLA, Merriam-Webster Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, all of those institutions already affirm the validity of they, them as singular pronouns. And even
Yes.
after they told that to their professor, the professor still did not, you know, agree to using their correct pronouns and chosen name. So that that continues to be a challenge for a lot of non-binary people, for a lot of gender non-conforming people who may be cisgender or who are not non-binary but also use they them pronouns or mix as an honorific. But it's also important to know that um, mix as an honorific and they them as singular pronouns, those are not new phenomena. Ever since the last century, people have been using mix as an honorific, mostly as an alternative to miss or misses, which,
Mm-hmm.
as I hope we know, is sexist because the same distinction is not held for men. Men only have one honorific. It's Mister,
Right.
regardless of whether you're married or not. They, them has also been used as a singular pronoun, I think, for centuries, especially in literary works and informal usage when people are addressing royalties, for example, they would sometimes use the singular they, them pronouns. So
Mm.
it's not new, but the only thing that has changed, for example, in recent decades is its context and the political ideas associated with it, because now they're being used quite increasingly, diba, as both as gender neutral honorific and pronouns and as the pronouns that many non-binary genderqueer and queer people in general use for themselves. So yun. I hope na in the future, di ba, we create a world where people won't be harassed for
Yes.
choosing
Right.
for having pronouns that are correct. So
Actually, that's such a good suggestion. Like when you're introducing yourself in class, you know, like letting people know right away what your preferred pronouns are and what you preferred to be referred to as. Because I haven't really done that yet. Probably because I'm so used to just introducing myself the regular way, which is just my name and my
mm.
course.
And
But
your age.
and my
Yeah.
age, ew, my age, but yeah. So
Like, luckily, my department is fairly progressive. Like, I come from the Department of English and Comparative Literature. So, you know what they say about the English department, you know.
Of course. Always
And
ahead.
a lot of
yeah.
a lot of professors actually ask us our pronouns beforehand, ask us
Oh.
about our chosen names. So that's really great. But I imagine that's not the case for other classes, especially in other colleges.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm at college. Just kidding. No, never mind. Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I'm not saying that this is always the case, but unfortunately, um, na medical colleges of that focus on medical sciences or natural sciences, di ba,
Mm-hmm.
are may
We're a bit
chance na
late.
mas exclusionary sila compared to, for example, di ba, colleges about arts or humanities or social sciences. They're much more accepting.
That's
Mm-hmm.
true.
That's facts. Straight up facts right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I might get in trouble, but yeah, there's I feel quite uncomfortable in my college. I'm not gonna say what my college is na lang para hindi ako ma-deads. Pero yeah, we still use gendered uniforms, and as a genderqueer person, that's
Oh.
so uncomfortable for me. Uh,
Mm-mm.
not to mention the fact ng init niya kasi aside of the uniform that I wear, which is like a dress in the hospital, I have to wear stockings. I have to wear ano yun, a camisole underneath the side of my underwear. It's so bad, I swear. and it just makes me so uncomfortable talaga, especially when people like point out my hair, because I have really short hair. And when we have to go to the hospital, we really have to like keep it out of the way and stuff like that, and they're always like, "Oh, your hair is so short, you look like a guy, ano, what is your patient gonna think?" And I'm like, um
You didn't come there for the patient
okay.
to judge you. You came there to serve them, diba?
Yeah, to take care of them. So regardless of what they think of me, I'm just gonna do my job, right?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
But yeah, I just want to ask back to the yung the honorifics. Tama ba? Honorifics with
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
mix.
honorifics.
Uh, it's valid to use it, right? For like official documents. I wanna clarify that.
Um, how do I answer that? I think it still depends. Like for example, in our communications, like when we communicate to UP offices or to other organizations, other institutions that we know are progressive, they don't make a big issue out of it. But I'm not sure if for example, if government offices or for example like the Senate, for example, or when you're trying to get a police clearance, I'm not sure if you could use that, because most of the time they would just depend or refer to your sex assigned at birth to
Yeah,
address you.
it's true.
But what we could do, diba, as advocates is to use mix increasingly.
Yeah.
Sometimes, diba, when we're writing a letter and we don't know the person, or if the person is if the letter is it's a general letter, what we used to do is to put Mr. or Miss. But
Right.
what we do now is to use mix as a gender neutral pronoun of honorific, especially if we don't know what the person uses as their honorific. So I think that that could be done. In that way, we're making mix more visible. We're signaling that people should use it both as a gender neutral pronoun, honorific, and as the honorific of choice of other people.
Yes.
Speaking of like
Great.
official
Yeah.
forms and data, I want to ask, like, I don't know, so you know those contact tracing forms and apps, right? I know yung mga options. So when they
Yeah.
ask you about gender, what do you put?
Me,
No, like, well,
um,
I mean, I want to ask you. Then we'll share ours.
okay. Of course, like when it's a school contract or like a government record in a country where we don't have, a gender recognition law for trans women and trans men, how much more, diba, for non-binary people. So I just put my sex assigned at birth. But if there's, an option for non-binary people, or if there's an option where I could just opt not to share my sex or gender, I choose that option.
Hmm.
So yeah. What about you?
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, so in my case, I choose the paper option. Never
Uh-huh.
the QR. Partly because my phone is so old, and pag paper kasi, I can literally put their non-binary. Like they ask me, "Oh, you asked me gender. I'll put non-binary. Like I'll put NB. Like okay, that's my name and
Mm.
stuff." Like I literally and well, if they ask for gender, pero if they ask for sex, I put my assigned female at birth. But that's just for me. It's just my way of being like, why do they always ask this?
Fighting
And
against the system.
yeah, and I want to see. I always found it uncomfortable with forms, kahit even before the contact
Ah.
tracing forms, kahit
Mm.
with like official forms. But that's just me. But how about you, Yas? What do you, when you know, with the forms?
Oh. I, I just put female. I just put, yeah, I I don't really like fight against the system
No,
right now.
that's okay.
But like, yeah, I put female because people usually recognize me as such, and it's much easier than having to go through the whole process of explaining and like talking over and over again with people who don't really get it. So yeah, female.
And you also get the idea, diba, that you might get in trouble for it. Like, I didn't know na
It's
you were
okay.
referring to like contact tracing forms.
But it can be
But
anything naman.
yeah. In specifically in that case, in my case, with contact tracing forms, there's only the male and female options.
Mm.
So I choose the male, because yeah, in a country that's hostile to LGBTQ people, in a country that still doesn't have a gender recognition law, so it's I think it's a self preserving act to just put your sex aside at birth, because otherwise you might be harassed or you might get in trouble.
That is a very
So
good
yeah.
point.
But I have
Now
this
that I
like
think about
I
it.
have this I have this funny experience because in Davao, if you go to a mall, I don't know if this rule applies to Metro Manila then. You have to show what do you call this? A work ID. So I also have like a temporary job, like in my in my aunt's business. So I just used that. Tapos my birth name was there. But during that day I was presenting very femininely. So the guard the guard asked me thrice, "Is this you?" So ikaw ba to? Because the guard wasn't sure, whether I was committing identity theft or whether I
Oh,
was a trans
identity theft.
person.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because my name is very masculine and I look very feminine. So they found it difficult to understand what I was. So parang may mga I don't know ano yung inisip niya. Pero in the end, they let me in naman.
Oh, that's good. At least they did. Ang hirap naman kung kailangan mo pang ipakita birth cert mo para lang makapasok sa mall, no?
True.
Yeah, I guess there's really a lot of work for more non-binary representation and visibility talaga.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, definitely.
Honestly, where
So,
would we start with that?
I guess this could be a start, having like non-binary people speak their experiences on a platform and, supporting each other when we have projects that do center around our identity, I guess, could be a good way to start.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Um, yeah. What was I trying to say? I mean, yeah. People would often dismiss our cause as being something so self-centered or focused, or they would say that why is it all about us? Why are we reducing ourselves to our identities or to our gender identities specifically? But
Mm,
unfortunately, ba, that's a privilege for them. They don't have to talk
True.
about their gender identities, especially for cisgender men. They don't
that's
have
really
to
true.
think about it that much. But for us, our gender identity is something that needs to be affirmed and reaffirmed every day because society is telling us that it's not valid, that it's wrong, that there's something wrong about us. So on our part, diba, we need to talk about our gender almost every day of our lives, even when
That's
it's
true. True.
tiring and frustrating. But we're doing it not just for ourselves, diba? We're doing it for a whole lot of people who are like us or who may be like us. So yeah. So we're not selfish for doing this. We're selfish for thinking that we're selfish for doing this.
Yes.
We're valid. We're valid. Like, sometimes we have to say, now that we're talking about it, we have to say that we have to remind that for ourselves then. Yeah, and even as of advocates,
Yeah.
we can always I mean, we are advocating for like other genders and other identities, pero paano naman sarili natin, 'di ba?
Oh, yeah.
Importante din tayo.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's why our LGBTQI advocacy should always be trans inclusive and non-binary inclusive. Because there are still I know a lot of spaces where that claim to be LGBTQI inclusive and affirming, but aren't actually that in reality. So it's really, as you said, it really starts with exposure, with giving platforms to actual transgender and non-binary people to share their stories and to educate others. And I hope that after we do what we do today, um, people who will listen to this will also educate themselves and the people around them, so that it's not just us, it's not just me, for example, a non-binary person who's always talking about educating others about non-binary issues. So
That's such a good point to all our listeners out there. You know, when you listen to this, it's good to take what you learned and like share it with people, or maybe share the podcast itself. Get more people to join our cause in making it more inclusive here. So I think honestly we've asked so many questions
Yeah.
already. Like, oh my god, we took up so much of your time. And thank you for
it's
giving
okay.
us your time. Would you like to give a message to our listeners out there about whatever you want to say?
Yeah, before we end, of course, thank you so much to Bagsari and to your TDOV team for inviting me and for inviting my fellow trans siblings from Babaylan to Trans Speaks. This is really a great initiative, and I hope that a lot of people will get a chance to listen to this and share this with everyone they know. Before I end, siguro, I would like I'm addressing every trans and or non-binary person who's listening to this, and I'm reminding you that you are valid, that your gender identity, your gender expression, who you are, is valid, and no one else can change that. It may seem like the world is against us, that the world is bent on destroying people like us, on literally invisibilizing us. But a lot of us here are fighting, for our rights. A lot of us are fighting for visibility, for recognition, for the right to be who we are without fear or without prejudice and discrimination. So kapit lang, and always remember that you have a community that's waiting to embrace you and that we're always here for you. Happy Transgender Day of Visibility to everyone.
Yay, thank you so
Thank you.
much. We'll be back with our next guest speakers after this short break. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trans Speaks. I'm your host, Yas, and here's my co host for today, Zoe.
Hello.
Yeah, so Zoe, we have a guest today. Can you tell us a bit about them?
So joining us today is Khrys. And Khrys, can you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Hi, I'm Khrys. I'm a graphic designer from Cebu, and I'm part of Team Cebu, Trans Man Equality and Awareness Movement, but I identify as agender. And I'm also a part of SGP, which is the Society of Gender Professionals.
Oh, that's really cool. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
We'll just be talking about some stuff about being non-binary, and just let us know if like anything makes you uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So let's start it off with what does being non-binary? Well, I mean, you use the term agender. So
Mm-hmm.
what does being agender mean to you?
Um, I think it's mostly like when people say or like refer to me, oh, they're a woman or something like that. I'm like, no, so it doesn't sound right. But then I also imagine from the other side, a man. I'm like, still doesn't fit either. So I'm just like floating in space.
No, yeah, I get that so much. That's literally exactly how I feel. But yeah, how did you come to find out that you were like agender? Like, was it always a thing that you didn't feel comfortable when people were like, oh, you're a cute girl or like a cute boy?
I I feel like I don't know if this is like a universal non-binary thing or trans thing, but I feel like when I was younger, I was always that one kid who's like, yeah, equality. Gays are great. I'm not gay, but you should support gays. Like looking back, I'm like, hmm. But yeah, I think it was around when I was 16. Like, it's for some reason that number jumps out, and I was on Tumblr where
Of
they
course.
were like
Yes.
talking about different non-binary identities. I think the moment when I was like, yes, agender, was when Facebook started rolling out the gender identifications, like that you could set
Yeah.
it on your
Yeah.
Facebook profile. That's when I was like, it's like shopping, like scrolling. Yeah, agender, I like that one. And like I was like, yes, this fits. I like this one. So yeah.
Oh, so like it was something you always felt, but like you just kind of chose which term on the non-binary spectrum fit you the most.
Yeah, I think I specifically chose agender because like I just don't fit. Like I don't want to go over there. I don't want to go over there. I'm going to go over there. Like I don't know. Like the way I see it is like it's not necessarily like pink and blue, but if there was pink and blue, I would be like yellow basically.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt that. But I mean I don't I mean I don't identify with agender though. But then
Mm-mm.
you know what they say with the whole binary. They think it's like just between male and female, but
Mm-mm.
for non-binary folks, it's like there are 2 points, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's not just directly linear. It could be like squiggy and all that
Mm-hmm.
around it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So how has it been like coming to terms with like your gender identity? Like were there any difficulties with like understanding yourself and like other people understanding you?
I think just who I am as a person, I don't really seek out like okay, it's gonna sound weird, but like validation from other people. Like as long as I know that I am a gender, I'm like cool. Like how do you say this? Doing stuff like physical, like wearing a binder and stuff like that, dressing masculine. That came later, and it came naturally. Like I need to dress this way. I need to just make people see me as something different. I was like, I'm just gonna do this, and I don't really mind what other people like. As long as I see how I see myself, basically, like,
That's good enough for you.
yeah,
And that's a great sentiment. Because I think like a lot of us feel the pressure to like conform to something, even though technically being non-binary
yeah,
means you're not conforming to
I mean,
anything.
basically being hipster and punk, but we're being forced to this idea of a hipster and punk,
yeah.
or what it means to be
Yeah,
non-binary.
yeah, it's
So yeah.
exactly how I feel. So there wasn't like this like awakening experience or anything, like someone just smacked you and was like, "Hey," like the world was like, "Hey, you know, this is you." Nothing like that.
I think I was like gender neutral, like ever since like when I was a kid. Like the whole like girl toys or like boy toys, like girls would play with dolls, and then boys would play with cars, and like I want all of that. And the boy,
Yeah.
like,
Right. Yeah.
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 like, like, like in McDonald's, you want the girl toy or the boy toy? Can I have both? It's like
Yeah.
Right.
greedy for
Right.
like, yeah, or like I would mix stuff like, oh, I want my action figures to wear the dress. It's like I don't know, like it's very, but I in general I was very like I just thought of this term now, but non-committal to like
Mm,
gender stuff basically. Like I was okay with dresses, with heels, and maybe that's just it's like a phase. Maybe in the future I'll dress more femininely or something like that, but it's just fashion. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
Like put
yeah.
the whole presentation for me is just like dressing up basically.
yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
And I
But
find it interesting that you described this non-committal. Like it's quite an accurate term because I mean for a gender, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, it's not for you. It's not really a big deal. It's like you go with whatever you're vibing with, and and you're not strictly adhering to anything. So
Yeah, like one of the analogies I used to use before, but I just feel like it's so long to say it sometimes. It's like gender for me is like locks, and I have the key to all of them, but I'm opening the lock to masculinity, but I can open all the other locks. I'm just choosing not to, basically.
That's
Oh,
very
that's really
interesting.
cool. Yeah.
But then, okay, this okay, we might go a bit tangent with this question. Okay, so there's like there's agender, and then there's
Mm.
bigender and
Mm.
trigender. So
Mm.
so when you go with the lock analogy, how
Mm.
does that differ with the other gender identities?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know.
you're
I don't identify as bigender, like genderqueer or those other identities, so I wouldn't know how they would see it. I don't know. It's also in a way like now I'm just looking at my art stuff. Like sorry, but like drawing and using specific colors to like draw or express yourself. So I was like, I can reach for that color or that color. I just chose this guy.
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, I
It
can
was
kind of
just a
relate to
question.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zoe's getting really interested.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not like every day you meet someone who identifies as agender, and then sometimes I encounter people who use the term bigender and trigender, and like yeah, I just want to know what it's like for people like that. I mean, for them, what's it like for them to identify as those with those terms? So
Very
yeah.
interestingly, actually, I met up with an artist that I found online. I was like, oh, I really love your art. I'd like to buy some prints. And then we met up like at a mall. And I guess they saw me and they were like, oh, what are your pronouns? And I was like, um, oh, I don't really have a preference. I'm agender. And they were like, and then holding my hand, like, oh my God, me too. And I was like, it was so amazing.
Oh my
Like,
god, that moment, that
yeah,
moment.
not only
Right.
non-binary, but specifically agender. It's like,
Right.
When
I
you
get
meet
that.
someone,
yeah.
oh my god.
When you meet someone who gets it.
Yeah, speaking of
Yeah.
such,
Like, I don't have to walk around. Yeah, basically, something like that.
yeah. Do you have like any identifier? Like we have these culture stereotype things where, for example, no, like it's an in general thing. Like for
Mm-mm.
example, you have like aces who they know each other when they see someone wear a black ring, something like that. Is there something like that for agenders? How to know
Me,
if someone's agender?
I really, well, I have only met one agender person, but
Oh.
they are like just from looks, they're not like me at all.
Mm.
Oh.
Like they acknowledge it that they look very stereotypically feminine, and they're like, but that doesn't make me less
Mm.
agender. So I think for me, I don't know if it's like in my head, like when I see a person, they're very like their gender doesn't
Register
make,
right away.
yeah, like I don't know if it's like I see everyone as agender, but it's like unless they make a mention of it, like they're like, I don't know, like, oh, being a woman is so hard. I'm like, yeah, like until
Oh, okay.
until they mention it, I don't know, it doesn't register in my head. Like
Ah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Right. And that's because, like, to you, when you were younger, like, it wasn't really a big thing, like, gender at all.
Yeah,
Like, you
and
were
it's
non-committal.
Not
Yeah.
yeah, and
committal.
then growing up and then learning more about how people's expression or how they present themselves doesn't necessarily correlate to their gender identity. So more and more, I've learned like not to assume when I see people, like just assume they're not this or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But
Yeah, that's a great practice.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, but like earlier, my question was like, it's more like if there's a secret language, how to communicate. Hey, I'm a gender. Where you all at? you know.
Maybe something like I when they say like I don't know, this is just for me, but when they say like when I ask them, oh you're when they say, oh you're non-binary, then I ask, oh you're non-binary, and they're like, I don't know. Like when I ask like, how do you identify? And they're like, I don't know. Whenever they say, I don't know, I feel like later on they're like, agender. I don't know. Like I have had two friends who are like on Facebook who I've met earlier and they say they're non-binary, and then later they say I've chosen the term agender to describe myself.
Right, that's interesting. How about you, Zoe? Do you know any codes like that for non-binary people?
Well, I live in the meme internet culture of the LGBT side, so I kind of try to know what's for each identity. That's
Oh,
why, well, because recently I've been exploring the aces and the arrow ace culture, so I haven't dived deep to the whole non-binary one yet, and the specifics and the spectrum. So I was just wondering, but I do meet people who identify as agender and also bigender, and but I haven't like just dived into it deeply.
And
But
also, I just wanted to mention this. Agender, like our flag, I don't ever see stuff for it, but I do have a sticker
oh, that's
for it.
great.
So if
oh,
I see like, you know what this is,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, actually,
it would be
yeah,
perfect. Yeah, I just
right.
made this, so
yeah,
perfect.
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Well, actually, it would be the flag. That would be like the sign.
Yeah,
If they get
Mhm.
it, you know.
I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
did a
Oh,
con once where I was selling like flag themed stickers, and then I would put out the sticker of non-binary and agender out, and then whenever someone points it out, like, is that the agender flag? I just automatically give it to them. It's like
for
Nice.
free.
get each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. Wow. So it seems like, I mean, it's good that you meet a lot of people from your community because
Mm,
I think here, especially, it's really hard to find people.
mm,
Hmm. But I guess the art community is like very
yeah.
diverse, right?
Yes.
Like there's
Yes.
so many different people there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's like seen in the art, but like, I don't know. There are signifiers like when I see the art, I'm like, or like, it's so nice to see like the rainbow flag in the username. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, actually, a lot.
rainbow
Yes.
rainbow flag and then Philippine flag. Perfect. Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I do see a lot of artists who are very open with expressing their gender identities, and it
Mm-hmm.
also reflects in their artwork. Actually, I do
Mm-hmm.
follow a lot of them. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and especially for those artists who like to express more of their gender identity, they put it into their art, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful, and like you understand
Yes.
more of the identity. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, more about you, and going through like navigating the world as like an agender person.
Mm.
How did your family and friends take it? Did you ever actually come out and tell them like, "Hey, I'm agendered," you know?
Nope. I never actually formally like came out. Like the first like concrete thing I said about like any part of my identity was um I was on a plane ride with my mom, and then I said we were talking about going to the States, and then I at first I was like, I don't want to go there, but then I was like, me, I want to go to the States, and she was like, what? Why now? And I was like, because my girlfriend lives there, and I'm like, and she was like, oh, okay. I was like, nice. Like I didn't say like, I don't know, I just went out with it like, ah, nice. But with the gender identity, it was when, this is so funny because team was holding a talk or a workshop talking about testosterone, and the head of team Chase actually knew my mom before I knew him. So my
Oh,
mom was the one who introduced me to team. I think she like knew like you're gonna be interested in this. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And then I learned a lot of things there. And then she was there the whole time, which is nice. Like she was very supportive. And then on the ride back home, I was like, may I want a binder? And she's like, okay, let's order one. And like, I have begun the journey basically. Started. And then a few months later is when I attended my first Pride March, the one in Andawe, and basically like I went full out basically on like expressing myself, and I was like, then the questions are, and I'm like, oh, by the way, yeah, I identify as agender, and there were questions which is fun, so I was like, yeah, so this is how I identify basically. So, but I only answer when they ask. I didn't go out of my way to tell them, like only if they ask, like, hmm. And my friends, like I have like most of my friends I met like in that circle, so they knew. So yeah. maybe some friends from before I had to explain, but they're cool with it. So it's
Oh,
nice.
that's really cool. Like, especially with your mom being super supportive about it. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I tried explaining what genderqueer was to my mom. I was like, Mom, so I need to tell you something. And I was like, I don't want to be a girl. And she was like, so what? Do you want to be a boy? And I was like, I don't want to be a boy either. And she was like, then what are you? And I was like, I don't know either,
Oh
but
my
I
god!
don't
Oh,
want to be
yes.
either of it. Like, and she's like, okay, I don't get it, but good for you.
Good for you.
So like at this point, I don't know if like she accepts or tolerates, but
Mm.
yeah, she doesn't really say much. Although I feel the pressure.
My mom is very different in that, like, I'll the first time I brought her a shirt from the men's section. I was like, does this look good? And she's like, I don't want you to buy it. And I'm like, why? And then she's like, it's ugly. Like, okay, wear something nicer. The shirt is nicer. I'll buy it for you if you wear this one. She doesn't have a problem with the gendering of the clothes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's your style that she has a
Mm.
problem with. Mm.
Yeah.
So like we've asked other people before, but do you think like being agender under the non-binary is also under like the trans umbrella
I
or
mean,
not?
I feel like because the definition of trans is like not like the gender you identify with is not the gender you are assigned at birth. So
Mm-hmm.
so if you like agree with that definition, you can identify as trans. But if you, I mean, you don't have to identify as something you don't want to be identified with. So some people they agree with the trans, but I do know some non-binary people who feel like I don't want to identify as trans because I feel like I don't know, with them it's like I'm not trans enough. I'm like, it's okay for like if it makes them uncomfortable. I understand if they don't want to use the term.
But I want to ask for you, is it a term would you use to describe yourself?
Yes, I just think it fits me, but
Mhm.
also it when I describe my identity to people who aren't in the community, it might be easier to start off with the trans so that they understand that I don't identify with the gender at birth, and then lead them into the non-binary conversation, basically.
Actually, that's true. Do you? I want to ask. Um, do you think it's still hard for people to grasp the idea of non-binary and agender? I mean, especially agender.
I mean, in general, people don't understand trans, so it's already so hard for like it's like cis, trans, non-binary, agender. It's like getting there is very difficult
Yeah.
for some people sometimes. So, like, just leading them to get to that point can be very hard sometimes. But if they care, they'll try and learn. So,
Right, yeah, that's
Do
true.
you feel erased in some conversations when it comes to like when or like spaces when you even you go out there, like people talk about the supposedly normal gendered stuff? Do you feel like you're not part of the conversation at times?
sometimes, only because they talk about transitioning stuff where I don't feel like I necessarily need it. And I don't think I feel erased in so much as that's not a conversation I'm necessarily interested in. So I just don't participate, which I think is the same with some binary trans people too. Sometimes they're not interested in, for example, bottom surgery. They're just, or so like they'll just not participate. And I don't think they feel erased necessarily by that like extent. So I don't know. That's just how I feel. There are some moments when they're like, they talk about yes, trans, these are the trans experiences, and then they talk about very binary terms like like transitioning to male. I'm like, we exist too. Or like our brothers and sisters. I'm like, oh, what am I?
Yeah.
Siblings, please.
Yes. It's so easy to just say a word.
Right, right. It's just one
Brothers
word.
and sisters, siblings, like efficiency
Yeah.
of
Right,
language.
right. Yeah, that's
I realize, sorry, maybe erasure, being erased is such a strong term. Sorry, invisible. There you go. Is that like, does it feel, do you feel invisible in some conversations?
I maybe, but I think it's also because I make myself invisible. Like I don't necessarily want to be super visible, basically.
Yeah,
Like
okay, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, maybe other people might feel that way. But I'm so like I'm struggling, so I don't want to add more. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
right, right, right. I actually have a very like something I've been curious about ever since you said you were agender.
Mm.
Do you experience gender dysphoria as someone who doesn't really commit?
Yes.
Like you do?
Yeah, because it's like I'm not saying it's easier for binary people, but for some binary people, when they experience dysphoria, sometimes it is fixed by doing X, Y, Z. But for non-binary people, I don't know where the end point of transitioning is. So getting there is like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Am I gonna feel better if I do this? If I do this? I don't know.
Right. I asked you that because just a couple of days ago I had like a meltdown because of like I went out, right? And
Mm,
I was looking very androgynous that day.
mm, mm-hmm,
And everyone I was talking to kept struggling to call me ma'am or sir.
mm.
Like, and it really just hit me hard that day. So I didn't know what to do to make me feel better because I don't identify as either of those. And like, it's not like if I were, let's say trans, if I was like a trans guy, I could just maybe like bind myself and I'd feel
Mm,
better or like
mm-hmm,
lower my voice so
mm.
that they'd perceive me as a guy.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. Like,
Mm.
I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. Do you get that feeling like,
Yes.
what's wrong with me? What can I do to make myself feel better? But yeah.
Like, because I just feel like personally, it's not worth my time to constantly correct people. So I'm just like holding it in because like, but then it also feels bad for me because like I just wanna feel okay, but it's very difficult to educate people sometimes.
Right, yeah. That's true. Like, it's just nice to know that other people go through the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was talking to Zoe, and like, Zoe's like one of the closest non binary people I know. And I legit was just crying, and I'm like, why aren't I normal? Why can't I just experience the binary like everyone else?
Yes,
But yeah.
and it comes in such little things
Yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah.
signing up for stuff, male, female. Like,
Yeah.
why do you need to know this?
Yeah.
like we were discussing this in another meeting I had in SGP. When to include like stuff like that, asking for gender, like for example, going to the dentist. Why would I need to ask?
Yeah,
Are
because it's your teeth.
women's teeth different from men's teeth? Is it so they can give you the pink toothbrush and the blue toothbrush? Like, why do you need to know? Just ask my
Right,
name. Just
yeah.
use my name. Something like that. I don't know. Do you
Sorry,
feel
I'm just.
validated by me
Yeah.
too?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
for you, how for you, Chris? How do you, now that we've touched on gender dysphoria, and you mentioned that it's not so easy to quell when the
Yeah.
dysphoria hits. I may I ask, how do you deal with it when it hits? Like, I mean,
Mm,
personally for you, how do you deal with it? Because it's unique, right? It's unique for non-conforming folks, gender
mm,
non-conforming folks.
mm. For this, like, can I have like a specific example? My mind is everywhere. Like,
Oh, like
going out and then someone like genders me, something like that. Like,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
um, I think like looking inwardly, because like I'm usually on my phone as millennials do, or yeah, millennials do. I'm like, I don't know. I just see that, and then I see my friends, and they're like, I know these people understand who I am, so I focus that like they know I'm like this. I'm just gonna like I don't know,
The
like
other people, yeah.
block it out. Yeah, like focus on like I know I'm like this. I know my friends. I know my family. So I should put their opinions of me higher than strangers. I don't know.
I see.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because like even if I try to do physical things like dress more masculinely, like I don't know if it's like I don't want to dress to just so other people will understand. Like I want to dress how I want to dress so I
Yeah.
feel good about myself. So like yeah.
Right.
Like I dress how I dress so that when I pass by the mirror I look like nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. It's something that I'll keep in mind from now on. Yeah. It was pretty helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, well, as an agender person, like you said you don't prefer any pronouns. Like,
Mm,
are there some that you don't want to be used towards you?
definitely it. But I think that's like yeah. But something very specific I noticed when being in certain spaces is if I'm in a space with lots of other non-binary people, they use they. If I go to a situation where there's more women, they use she, and when I go to a situation with more guys, they use he, and I'm like, okay, like I'm okay with that because like I'm chameleoning, I'm camouflaging, like they
Right.
see me as one of them, so I'm like, it's okay for me, but yeah, I'm okay with that.
So, do you use a different like suffix in a professional setting, like mix, or do you use like the traditional ones, like Mister or Miss, when signing off on things that need to be signed off on?
Completely, honestly, I don't deal with that kind of stuff too often to like really like because it doesn't keep hitting me. So I'm like, oh, I can brush this off for now.
Right.
Yeah, like maybe yeah when I get emails from stuff and they're like Miss, I'm like or but some emails they're like Mister Dash Mrs. I'm like yeah okay or Mom Sir I'm like yeah.
Yeah, Momster is nice. Yeah.
My favorite is when I go to order in Jollibee they're like the customers before me, good morning sir, good morning ma'am, and then when they see me they're like, good morning, may I take your order? Like, I like you.
Right, that's nice. It's good that they opt not to use it
Hmm.
because it's much better than people like struggling.
I had a
Yeah.
very interesting experience when I went to um, go eat in some Gyp Salamat, and the lady taking the reservations, she saw me and then she was like, "Oh, sir," and then I said something, and then she was like, "Oh, ma'am, oh, sir," and then without prompting, she was like, "How would you like to for me to call you?" And I'm like inside, I'm like, but outside, I'm like, I was like so nervous, like, oh, you can choose any. Like, because internally, I was like, oh, it's so validating, like, because she didn't need to do that. Like, she's just working and she needs to get these reservations going, but she took the time to like make sure, like, she was referring to me properly, and I was like, so nice, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so heartwarming. Like, pag ako
Yeah, like,
yun, kikiligin
yes,
ako na sobra. Like, you know
yeah,
that feeling where it's just like, oh, I'm seen.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it caught me so off guard. Like, I didn't know how
I
to
don't want to
react.
cry in a
Yeah,
samgyup salamat.
yes. Like grilling, like, and the tears falling to the
It's the
ground.
smoke. It's the smoke. Yeah.
Are you okay? Yes, it tastes so good.
The taste of validation and being seen
Validation.
Yes.
and beef.
Yes.
But it actually doesn't take much to actually do that.
Yeah.
just asking someone, hey, how would you like to be called?
It's
Mhm.
literally like what 3 seconds of their
Yeah.
time.
Instead of spending 10 seconds being bamboozled, like, should I with internal confusion, like,
And
should I call
it
them?
made me really endeared to that specific branch. I'm like, I'm coming back to this one. This is great customer service. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Because, like, we don't have a lot of spaces where
Yeah.
people just do that for us. And it's like
Without
hard.
prompting.
Yeah, without asking them to. So it's nice to find like places like that. I'd actually go to that Samgyup Salamat.
Same.
But
Ha-
it's probably all the way in Cebu.
Yeah. Like social distancing. So like,
yeah, how to get loyal customers.
yeah.
This is one way. We'll go there.
Tells all my non-binary friends, they're cool.
They're cool. Yeah, go here, go here.
They get it. So like more on like the agender experience, I guess. Have you ever had like a hard time like making new relationships with people? It could be like romantic or like platonic, but has it ever hindered like you being close with someone?
I've only had one romantic relationship and it was cool. But like I'm not a romantic, but like just now relationships of that sort just don't interest me at all. So I don't really worry. Who knows, maybe it might be a problem in the future, but for now I'm just surviving. So like but in terms of friendships, like I like to make it known from the very beginning, like, yeah, my gender. So that if they have a problem with it, like I don't find out later on and then have to go through the heartbreak of like I have to dump you. You suck. So yeah, I don't know. I just do it from the get go to get it over with, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because like some people opt not to, because things like getting fetishized is a thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the reasons. Yeah.
I want to ask about bathrooms.
Oh, bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, because okay, as a gender, do you feel pressure to go to pick either? Or
Like choosing. This is so funny. Goes choosing. Like it's just like the non-binary experience. Should I go to boy bathroom or the girl bathroom? My answer: I don't. I don't go to the
you go to the
bathroom.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Big brain.
Yeah. Or I don't know. Like SM has been kind of good in that they have the family bathrooms, and I just like I'm gonna go to that one. I don't actually use public restrooms that often, so I don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I did like even no matter what bathroom I go to, I'm gonna get weird looks. Like I go to the women's bathroom and they're like, "Oh, there's a guy in here." I go to the guys' bathroom, there's a girl in here. Like, how do I win this?
No,
Like
yeah,
literally, I
felt
walked into a
that.
women's bathroom where she was doing her makeup, and when she saw me, her lips like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want to do that to another lady. Makeup is expensive, but anyway, yeah.
Right. But that's sad. Cause like,
Yeah.
it's not good for your body either to like hold it in when you really have to go and there's only public restrooms. But aside of that, it's like, it's really just an uncomfortable place to go to.
Yeah.
Like even just needing to go to it fills me with dread. Like,
Yeah.
not again. Why
Yeah,
did
like
I
just
have
the
to
thought,
want to
like,
pee now?
yeah.
Yeah. And it's
For-
scary
Mm,
because you don't know how
But-
people are gonna react.
yeah. But the thought of like maybe just like if I pee myself, maybe it's better than being harassed in the bathroom. Like I don't know. It's like weighing the is this both are bad, but this is better. I don't know.
Yeah, at least peeing yourself is just you embarrassing yourself and no one like treating you badly.
Yeah.
They'll probably just be like, "Oh, I don't want to be near you, not because of your identity, but because you feed yourself."
Yeah, I'm like getting the police called because there's a pervert in the bathroom. Like, no, like,
Right. Yeah, because that happens a lot here.
yeah.
So,
I actually went to cause I was an architecture student for like 2 months. I went to University of San Carlos, and our building is called Safad, and it's all the like the artsy people. And like honestly, nobody cared about the bathrooms. Like they just go in whichever bathroom. Like it's so, it was very strange to me because that was my first experience. But like everyone just like I saw someone drop their water. I'm like, I need water, and then they go to the boys' bathroom because it was closer. I don't know. It's like
it's nice.
very, like I don't know if it's just the Safad bathrooms. Maybe they do this in the other buildings, but I guess the artsy types are more open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I want to share my experience. Like going to this one mall back where I live. It's like Alabang Town Center. For anyone who wants to go to a place with a gender neutral bathroom. Yeah, I was eating with my family and then I had to go and I was like, oh no. And then I saw this sign. There was this sign that said gender neutral bathroom.
Wait,
In the mall.
It literally said gender neutral?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then like when you go into the hallway, you know, the boys' bathroom is all the way at the end. The girls' bathroom is like near that to the right. And there's this one like you know, like I don't know, it looks like a PWD bathroom, but and it literally has a sign that says gender neutral bathroom. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, because it's very different to be told specifically that this is for you, unlike looking for a space for you. They just gave it to you. It's like,
yeah, it was amazing. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna go here all the time. This is my favorite mall now because they have a bathroom where I'm not gonna be judged.
Google Maps 10/10 gender neutral
10
bathroom.
But yeah, it just goes to show how like really important it is for us to have like places where we can be safe in. Yeah, and like educated people who understand like what we're going through. Because like just one bathroom made me like a mall so much that it's the only mall I go to now.
Be with the samgyupsala.
Yeah, and like I hope that we'd be taken into consideration as well when like people think of like making spaces for the queer community, I guess,
or at least trying to make it more inclusive.
Because I'm sure like I don't know, like cis people maybe go into their bathrooms, they see it and they almost never like said a second thought, or maybe they're like, huh, weird, and then they go on with their thing. But for us, it's such a big thing. And for the people who made that bathroom, probably, I know it might be harder than the Samgip Salamat because they had to do engineering stuff, but I don't think it was as like super difficult. Like, oh, we gotta get this food. I know it's
right. It's just one extra like tiny ass room where you just put a toilet and that's it.
Yes.
And maybe a sink, but yeah.
Maybe I need to wash your hands. COVID out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to also ask, what kind of misconceptions or stereotypes do you deal with when people find out that you're agender? Or when you tell them?
I think the people I explain it to who aren't very educated about it, they just don't have misconceptions at all. But I feel like in general about agender people is that they see how I dress and they're like, you're agender? But then why do you dress like a guy? And I'm like, how does an agender person dress? Tell me. What does an agender person look like? Like, what am I supposed to look like? They're like, and then they usually can't answer that. I'm like, yeah, if you can't answer that, I can't either.
Right.
So it's just mostly people gendering you in a nutshell.
Yeah, like they, of course, there's that non-binary misconception that you're supposed to look like as androgynous as possible. Like, no, like you can, like if cisgender people can dress whatever way and then they can still be considered cisgender. How come like non-binary people can't do that?
Right.
It's
That's
very
such a
strange.
good point.
Like same
Yeah.
with like like binary trans people. Like when a cisgender guy just like wears a dress, it's like, oh, slay. But then when a trans guy wears a dress, it's like, are you sure you're trans? Like, how come you're just putting that thing on trans guys specifically? Like, yeah.
Right. And like it's not even that. It's like they want people to look a specific way all the time. Like honestly, I don't think I've ever seen like a cis guy who wasn't straight, white, and skinny wear a dress and be complimented. Like yeah, like it
And
just goes to show that they
I'm just realizing now, but it might be like a thing wherein they want to make how we present more visible so they can like know like you're non-binary, so like I'm gonna like they want to know to like exclude like like
Oh.
yeah, you know what I'm getting at, like they want to make sure you're like weird so that they know not to vibe with you. I don't
Associate
know.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's opposite for us. I see people just saying like this, and I'm like, I'm gonna hang out with
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
people because I understand that if I hang out with you, you won't be weirded out by how I present. So it's I
Yeah.
forgot what that's called. It's like something like coding or something. I don't know. It's like signaling to other people. Like
Ah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I use my clothes to do that a lot when I go out.
I literally have a
Hi.
jacket that's just covered in like rainbow stuff, and that's what I like. It's like a sign that's like LGBT.
LGBT.
Then when you
Like
meet someone
literally,
who's
There's
LGBT,
suspenders.
literally, there's
Yeah.
like a flag on the back that's like this big, and it's a rainbow like on the back, like
I
literally
love
like
that.
signaling.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
beacon. Like, hi,
Yes.
gays, please invite me into your group.
Yes.
But yeah, now that you mention it, it does seem that way sometimes. Like, cis het people like try to make sure that they understand how exactly you look like, so that they know that this type of person shouldn't be with us.
Mm.
And I get that a lot actually. Like, I don't know, I'm minding my own business and I look gay as hell. Like they're like, oh yeah, they move away from me, or like they purposely won't associate.
I don't know if I really noticed that, but I'm just like so socially awkward. I don't notice when people are
same.
I just assume people think I'm weird, not like just because of my gender identity,
Alright.
but just in general.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
Yeah,
I
get
think
that.
I'm just weird in general. That's why people don't like me either.
Or is that like non-binary,
Yeah.
non-conforming?
Yeah, maybe it's a non-binary
Which
thing.
is awkward.
Especially looking back at my childhood, it's like, oh, that wasn't weird. That was non-binary.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah. Like looking back on it now, like
Like some people are like, oh my god, you're so weird. Why are you wearing like a bow tie? And I'm like, oh, I think it's fun. And then now I'm like,
it makes so much sense
yeah.
now. Like, yeah, definitely. Like how I always tried to like play sports with guys, but also like talk with the girls as well. And I didn't know where I fit in with that, and people thought I was weird. But then I realized I just didn't care. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be friends with everyone despite like
Yes.
the gender norms. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you think of like a lot. Like, oh, the signs were there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Especially stuff. I just noticed it now, like when the class would be divided into boys and girls, but then inadvertently, like the teacher's like, "Oh, we need one person to write down the score." Like me.
The judges.
Who just to avoid getting in line with everyone
Yes.
else. Like, yeah, definitely. I'll help you, please.
I don't even like say me. I'm like, I'm already there. Like, I'm already in the front of the class.
It's either that or like when they don't have anyone that they need like to help them with anything, like I really just stand awkwardly until like the teacher tells me which line to go into. I'm just standing like, oh, Romero, shouldn't you be with the girls? And I'm like, okay. I guess I'll go there then.
Okay,
Yeah,
and this
but
is also a thing. I don't know if it's just me, but like AFAB, non-binary, guys being told to lift stuff, and I'm like, I can help lift. What are you talking about? Me? Yeah,
Lift that too.
so strong. And now I have back pain.
no, but yeah, that's so accurate. Like every time they like say that, oh, only guys should do this
Yes.
or only girls should do this. Like I make it a point to do it
And
too.
then you lift more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There was
Lift
this
more.
Or like lifting chairs and
on both
very
arms.
loudly saying like, it's nothing. This.
Like
inside
I
you-
went to but inside, yeah, you're like, oh my god, I carried way too many chairs. Definitely, yeah, because I went to like a very Catholic grade school, so like every time we had like Friday mass, like we'd have to put the guys would have to put the chairs away, and the teacher would always say like, oh, the boys should put the chairs away, your boys, you should be able to carry that. And I'd be like staying behind and like packing up the chairs with the guys. And I'm
Yes.
like, haha, I can carry more than them.
When like an instant of that made me very like frustrated is when we were chosen to do the Monday like ceremony, and then the girls would be like doing the flag thing and the prayer
Yeah.
and reciting the Panatang Makabayan, and then the guys would be near the flagpole and they would be the one to pull the flag, and I'm like, I want to pull the flag up. Like I just want that part. Can I try? Like unfair.
Right. And like
Yeah.
it's weird how that's gendered too.
Yeah, like it's pulling
just
a rope
the
and reciting
flag.
words and doing this. Like,
Yeah.
oh, girls can do it more fluidly.
More like conducting.
Yeah,
Aren't conductors in orchestras usually men
Yeah.
though? Yeah, but it's just strange. Like a lot of gendered things don't make sense to me. And it's always weird when like my cis friends take it as it is and it's just normal to them, and I'm like,
yeah,
They don't question
why
it.
don't you question these things? Like you could do it too, you know?
yeah. Especially like products. Like a lot of women's stuff are usually more expensive than guy stuff, and it's usually the same thing, just with a different label. I'm like,
Or with a different smell.
yeah, like
Yeah.
you could get this. Like you don't have to pay that extra. Like, or like if you
Right.
want to smell nicer, you can just choose the other one.
Yeah,
there's-
the-
It's very
like I
weird.
saw, like I think it's the pink tax as well. Like
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like such a huge thing. So like when I see that I can have like cheaper like for men alternatives to the things I use,
Yeah, like
make
I
it
don't,
a
I
point
don't
to
use them,
like-
but people use razors as an example,
yeah,
like
yeah.
for shaving. Like it's probably the same thing. Like it's
Yeah,
a blade.
it's not like our hair is built different. Like
Yeah,
just thinking about it, it's hair.
And you
yeah.
just
And then some
cut
people
it.
use the excuse like, oh, guys' hair is way thicker and women's hair is thinner, and I'm like, but not all women's hair are the same. Like some
Exactly.
and then some guys' hair is thin. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't your own thing doesn't make sense. Examine your beliefs.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
You know,
Yeah,
sometimes
and
it's
I'll-
like as not as people who do not conform to the binary. It's like sometimes we have to prove ourselves to both just to justify our existence.
Mm-hmm.
Or to just reject the binary altogether by just trying to be the supreme one.
the supreme
Yeah.
being.
The supreme being that gender cannot hold limits to my being.
Yes, but yeah, especially the part when you said like I try my best to fit in with both like cis men and cis women. Like I try to make it a point to like be able to do the things they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm with my cis male friends, I always like use terms like pre or like like very like masculine things just to like fit
Camouflaging,
in. Yeah,
blending in.
camouflaging myself, and then like when I'm with my cis like girlfriends, like hey guys, hey girl, like what's
That's such a
up?
weird thing because I do the exact opposite.
You do the
Like,
opposite.
like if I'm more with girls, I act very masculinely, and then when I'm around guys, I'm like, hey.
I
And
do
then,
this.
what is that?
Oh my
Like,
god, is this
yeah.
Is this a
non-binary?
non-binary thing?
Trying to blend in with both because we don't fit in with them,
Or we reject that,
or we
Yeah,
reject.
like
so we
rejecting,
don't fit in.
We're all
maybe,
thinking.
maybe,
No, yeah,
or
we're all
maybe
just
it's like,
worried.
maybe it's like internalized thing. Like, there was this tweet once where it's like, I gotta be the hottest person in this Walmart. So, like, somehow it's that, but with gender. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta be the most in this gender. Like,
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That makes sense. And you always like have this feeling of like having to be better. Like not better at the specific thing. Like you don't know what you should be better at, but you just kind of feel like you have to be better for people to acknowledge that like
yeah,
you
like,
exist.
oh, yeah, like, oh, so you're like more than what we expect. So we're
Yeah,
gonna miss you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like they think less of us for not being one of them. So we have this.
Mm.
Maybe I don't know if it's me or with if it resonates with some of you. The need to like compensate for what we're not.
I think that's a for me, like growing up I was raised, of course, like to wear dresses and stuff. And I think the way I dress now is to like balance it out. Like I have so much of this. I need to raise this part up. Like this is the femininity, this masculinity, like maybe raise it up. So maybe in the future when it's even, I'm gonna like
Yeah,
exceed
just
it
play
more,
Yeah.
you know.
around with
Like
it
I'm
whenever you
making
want.
up for last time, basically, you know. Like
Yeah,
I didn't get to dress like this when I was younger.
That's such a good point. Now that
that
you
is such a
mention it,
mood.
like I think that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, like a lot of binary trans people do that thing where they feel like they didn't get to experience their childhood because they didn't experience it in the gender they wanted it to be.
Mhm.
So they do childish things, and I'm like, just let them be. Like,
Mhm.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Like
like dressing or like their makeup is so extravagant, like trans women, or their makeup is so extravagant, and they wear very revealing clothes. I'm like, this is their first time
being able,
experiencing this. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let them be. Let them discover
Mm.
it.
yeah, and it's sad that people still say stuff to us like when we're just wanting to be ourselves, like not just like non-binary people but trans people in general. It's like stop gatekeeping us, please. Like we were already like forced to be a certain way from like when we were younger. At least let us have this now, you know?
Yes. Like, like, sir, this is a Wendy's. How am I affecting you?
This is a Wendy's.
What would be the, sir, this is a pancake house? Like, I don't know, what's Filipino version.
Don't we have Wendy's here? We do.
Yeah, we have Wendy's. We have Wendy's. Hindi yan
We
uso.
don't.
Jollibee McDo. Usually.
Yeah.
Sir, this is a Jollibee.
Yeah, but it's just hard sometimes. Like I'm already quite introverted, and I only go out when I really have to do something, or especially now during the pandemic, it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
like made me into a very antisocial person.
Mm.
So like it just sucks when I'm feeling good about how I dress before I step out into the world. And then as soon as I like go out, you get looks, you get
Yeah.
misgendered, and then like I just wanted to have a good time and
Yeah.
look
And
good today.
I came out to have a good time, and I'm honestly feeling so attacked right now. So like,
Yeah.
but like, I know I was the one being asked questions, but I also want to ask the question like,
Yeah.
how
go.
has like the pandemic affected that kind of stuff? Because like wearing a mask for me, it's like covering up some like, so for some people it's kind of harder. And then also I wear the PPE, the like the full suit thing, because I'm high risk. So when I go out, I have to wear like full PPE, face shield, mask. So I don't know, I'm very like I'm just a blob now. So I don't know.
Oh, I want to
it might
be a blob.
but sometimes it's so weird because like I have different color PPE because I
So
can wash it and
nice.
then wear. So like I'm a blob, but then I changed the blob to color pink and they're like girl blob. Like, what? Like my default PPE color is black and
Right.
they're like default. And then when I wear the pink one, they're like a pink blob. It's like playing
A
Among
female
Us. You're like, yeah. And when I wear my blue one, I'm like,
Male
boy blob.
blob.
Isn't that like instinctual? It's just the color. Like they can barely see my face. I can barely move around and do my mannerisms, but they're
You're
like
already a
they're
blob,
like
but they gender you.
no, they're like struggling to latch on to a gender thing.
Yeah.
The color-
yeah.
I know it's a blob, but which kind of blob?
Right. No,
Like if
but
I
yeah,
wear
I get what
white
you
one-
mean.
Yeah.
You were white once, and then what did they say?
Well, I'm like wondering if I wore white because I don't wear white because it's very easy to get it dirty. Bro, like if I wore white, how would they?
Angel blob. Just kidding.
No, I know
Medical
what they.
personnel,
No,
I'm coming for you.
I know what they think. Very sus.
Oh yes.
Yeah, white's looking sus right now. No, but like what you were saying about having a mask and a face shield and everything, I think it makes it harder for them.
To like
But it's great for us.
yes.
Not exactly. Well, I mean, yeah,
Sometimes.
they have
Yeah.
such a hard time like getting what I am whenever I go
Mm.
out with a mask and everything. Because I don't know, I think my lips are quite feminine. Is that a weird thing to say? But they do. So like without a mask, people just automatically assume a woman. But like with a mask on, they're like, because you can only see this, so it's mostly like, what is that?
They don't recognize you as a blob.
Yeah, and then I always notice that they either look at my chest or like, my
Yeah.
just to
To
make
latch
sure.
on. To latch on
Yeah, to
something.
latch
Yeah.
onto a gender, and like it makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Please
It's like
don't look there.
it's like the list of the tertiary gender characteristics. It's like a checklist, like long eyelashes, pink, like they're looking for like earrings, like
Earrings?
you're like what the heck?
Yeah, like their chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how do you know I'm just a really fat guy? Like these are my man titties. But anyway.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? I think for me the honestly for me the thing that like for that clicks into people's mind and then genders me when I'm like default blob is always my voice, I think. I like when I get calls and stuff, that's when it's very like I can't hide. I don't know. When I start talking. Also I feel like the way I speak to strangers, I'm very polite and somehow that's a feminine trait and I'm like are guys not supposed to be polite? Like if I want to be seen as a guy, should I be rude to you? Like do you want me to be rude to you so that you see
Like when
me
someone
like-
says hi to you and you don't know them, you're like, no. Like, is that gonna distinguish you as a male?
Yeah, like I just feel like when I see waiters, I'm like, thank you, like, oh excuse me, like I'm very like I wanna be seen as a nice person. So I'm very like how do I call this? Conscious of how like nice I am. So but people
just
see it as feminine.
manners
It's
too,
very
yeah.
weird, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything's so gendered.
Mm,
With or without the mask.
yeah.
No,
It just very strange to me how politeness is a feminine thing.
Same.
Or even like, I don't know if that's the thing, but like apparently to guys, if women are like polite to them, they'll see it as flirting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so weird. That's so weird. Like, if that's true, then women should just never be polite. Guys are polite. Is that what you want? Is that what
Just
you
be
want?
rude to everyone, yeah. But that's true. Like my therapist actually was like, here's a book that'll explain why that happens. And it's like an actual book talking about like gendered things.
Mm-mm.
And I was like, whoa, That's interesting. It's like men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and
Yeah,
it
I think
discusses like a whole bunch of like gendered things and like why men would take women being nice as them liking them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
it's.
like a good read.
I keep hearing about that book, but I've. Is it a
Same.
long book or is it a
I
long
have a
book?
PDF. It's not. It's just like 170 pages.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice, nice.
just let me know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Educate
but
yourself.
as like a non-binary person, it's hard to navigate the world because like
Mm.
people perceive me the way they want to, right?
Yeah.
So like for men, they still perceive me as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I don't have any physical transitioning happening to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm too nice to them, they do really assume that I like them in that way. And it's led to some very, very uncomfortable situations. But the same thing with women though. Like even though I'm not interested in them because
Mm-hmm.
I dress masculine sometimes, they're
Yeah.
like, "Don't fall in love with me." And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"You're
I think
not
if
even my
anyone says
type."
that, yeah, I think, or like, I have standards. Like, that always gets them
Yeah.
mad. It's
Yeah,
so funny,
please.
I swear.
Yeah.
But the moment they say that, it's like, never. The moment you said
Maybe
that,
I
that,
thought
that
you
was
were
like,
cute, but yeah.
no.
You?
No. Like you.
Like,
Like,
I
you had
was
long hair.
interested. No, not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's hard because like we can't really stop people from seeing us the way they want to see us,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and like
it's a cultural thing. It's kind of been ingrained in our culture to have all these gendered binary
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, but the Filipino language doesn't really have that. I think it was more of like a colonial
The Yeah,
influence.
the influence
Yeah,
from Spanish where it's like maestro,
it's the
maestra, and I'm like,
Spanish people.
I did
Yeah.
a whole. I wasn't the first time I talked with SGP. They actually invited me to talk about non-binary experiences, and I did a whole talk about
Ooh.
how colonialism affected how people see gender identity in the Philippines, and how before they came, it was cool, and then they came, and it's like,
Not
oh,
cool.
we have to conform to your ideals. I'm like,
Yeah, we have to go to the box now.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, and they'd shove us there and pretend we're not here.
Yeah.
it's. Have you seen that comic where it's like a box and it's like
Yeah,
pink blobs
and the
inside, and they're like,
blob.
we're making. Oh, we don't like it. We'll make our own space, and
And
then
then
they see
there's
us.
a punch.
Why are you excluding us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
There's a lot. There's a
yeah,
lot.
same.
So much.
There's so much. But aside of like your gender identity, like did it play a role in how you perceived your like romantic and sexual attraction to other people?
Hmm. I just I feel like I never think about that kind of stuff so often. Like I experienced it once, and I'm like, I think I'm good for now. I don't know. So because
Right.
also for me, my attraction to like specifically guys, it's very confusing because I'm like, do
Mm.
I like them because I want to date them, or do I like them because I want to look like them?
Mm. Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
I like
that's
the way you
understandable.
dress. Like, is it because I like you, or because I want to get your clothes? Like,
I
so
could buy
I
that.
don't know. Like I'm not. It's not very. Like it's very hard for me to get crushes. So I don't
Yeah.
think about it too often. Well, also interesting fact. And she's cool with this, but my first girlfriend was trans, so I think it was easier because I don't have to, explain stuff. And I feel like
Right.
some trans people, like, they don't say they don't date cis people. They just date other trans people because it's easier. Like, I don't have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
explain. Like, you get me. So,
Right, right.
mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
because there's
it,
like a whole talk you have to give them for
you mean
them
like a
to.
whole vocabulary quiz?
Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you
yeah.
this book. Write a 3-page essay and then come back to me.
Let's get
If you
ready
get
to date.
if you get 80 points, you can.
You can date me. or like you have like a Google form ready, like assessing their knowledge about like
Yes.
being trans.
Just like, like when you join a Facebook group, you have to answer the question.
Yeah.
Like that.
Now you can be part of my life.
Yes. God, I wish I could do that for everyone. Like, are you cool with trans stuff? Like, yes. And then I'm like, okay, I'll deal with you. Because it's so tough learning later on. Like,
Right, that they weren't cool with it.
yeah, like I spent so much like
Invested
emotion.
on the
Yeah,
box,
invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
resources, and then, like you said, oh no, I have to dump you now.
Yeah.
You don't get me. This isn't gonna work out. But yeah, and it's even harder if you've actually fallen in love with a person. Honestly, I think we answered so many questions that we had
Yeah.
already. And like some of them we didn't even have, and it was just me and Zoe like asking a fellow non-binary person what their experience was. And it's always
Yeah.
nice to meet more trans people because it helps us learn about ourselves and learn about the community as a whole. So, as an agender person, this is the first time I've ever actually met one.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
What will you say to all the uh, people listening out there who may be like experiencing things similar to you and like maybe thinking that they're agender as well?
Yeah, I was actually gonna mention this. Like, I was gonna talk about this specific topic wherein like, it's really important for non-binary people, for agender people, to talk about their experiences because
Yeah.
it normalizes it when other like
Yeah.
I do it for you. Like, if I hear about like even just one like non-binary kid, they're like, oh, I heard the term from you, and I think that's so cool. I'm like, yes, like it's
Yes.
like just for I don't know if it's specifically the younger generation, but like it's cool. You can do it. Like there are people like me, there are people like you, and we can do this. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually like that. Like, and I'm kind of open with my identity on Facebook, and I've had people approach me like in my messages, like, can you explain what this means? And then they're like, oh, I think that's me, and I'm like, like being able to validate people because they trust me because I'm so open with who I am.
Yeah.
Like,
It's good to have a visible agender icon.
yeah, because like that's why people think representation is so important. Like
Yeah.
the people who don't think it's important are already overrepresented. Like you see yourself, you're there always. For us, we're never there. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we have you on here. Maybe you might be the next agender icon.
Oh God.
The social anxiety.
Next thing you know, you're all spreading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spread agender, not corona.
Actually.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here today, Khrys. Like
I'm
it
so
was
glad
really
to be
nice meeting you.
yeah to be able to talk about this stuff because it's actually very difficult sometimes to talk in binary trans spaces because they really can't relate to some of the
Right.
experiences we have. So it's nice to talk to other non-binary people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just vibing.
Just vibing.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the last episode of Trans Speaks. Like us, we hope you learned something new about the non-binary trans experience. With that being said, we'll catch you again later.